And we need to cultivate a story of desire in which the body keeps score, in which actually I listen to the knowing of my body. I get quiet enough. I meditate. I chant, right? I practice. I listen. I study. I study the sciences. I study the interior sciences. I listen. I hold. I touch. I feel. And I live and I be that love story. And I participate in the evolution of love. That's what we're here to do. That's the new story. That's the universal love story in which the value of cosmos is Eros value all the way up and all the way down. Welcome, everyone. Just welcome, welcome, welcome. It's so insanely good to be together. And there's so much that we need to do, that we want to do today, and that needs to be done. What I'd like to, with your permission, everyone, to spend our time on the next couple of weeks, deeply related to what we've been talking about in the last 4 weeks, but kind of in a new frame, is Eros and existential risk, and what that means in the most intimate and personal dimension of my life today and tomorrow, and this week and next week. In some sense, what we're doing here at One Mountain, Many Paths is enacting a revolution in which our premise is that we are at this time between worlds and time between stories, like Da Vinci and his cohorts were in the Renaissance, as we say virtually every week. But that in order to respond to this time between worlds and time between stories, in which we're threatened both with the potential death of humanity, existential risk, or the second form of existential risk, the death of our humanity, we can only respond effectively and ultimately effectively in one way. Yes, we need to work on infrastructure solutions and social structure solutions, reformulating law, working to deploy technology appropriately. And my friend Elon Musk is focused on what I would call infrastructure solutions, whether that from his perspective is a chip in the human brain. Let's not go down that road right now. Whether that is certain kinds of artificial intelligence, whatever that happens to be, whether that is a world surveillance system of a particular kind, but whether it's searching for bioweapons and wastewater, it's infrastructure or social structure, right? Reformulating the way laws are passed, the way regulation happens, the way we control artificial intelligence. And these are infrastructure, social structure solutions. And they're important. But what we've been saying is that they're insufficient. And if we've learned anything from the last 35, 40 days since October 7th and the atrocities that happened on the southern border of Israel and the tragedy that has ensued since then, perhaps the unavoidable tragedy, not clear, but the tragedy, unavoidable in the sense that and this is what's key, unavoidable in the sense that the stories that people are living inside of that created the reality of October 7th and the reality of the response to October 7th, particularly in the Western world, in the free Western world, is based on people living in failed stories. So I want to go into this in a deep way, and a kind of, and we're going to look at a code in a second. This week's code, which is going to be the same as last week's code. We're going to add something to it. We're going to chant. We're going to practice. We're going to celebrate. I want to recapitulate what we talked about last week, and then really expand in a deep way the third part of last week, right? Which is, what is the new story that we can live inside of? Now, I'm not going to enter into today, right, which I will spend some significant time and devote at least an entire one mountain to what actually is happening in Israel today. What are the options? What is the Israel Defense Forces doing, right? Why is what's happening? What is the nature of the intense, tragic moral confusion, which is just beyond intense, and the inability to kind of, on the one hand, hold the enormous pain at innocents being killed. Just literally an hour ago, those of you who are tracking and actually reading accurate sources, which you need to do, right? You know, Israel tried to deliver fuel to a particular hospital, right, in order to keep basic services going, and Hamas refused the fuel, wanting the people in the hospital to die, right, for the purposes of promoting the jihad agenda. If you can't understand that, which is an absolute fact, you don't understand what's going on, right? What does it mean, right, when a jihadi culture of death meets a culture of life, and how do they interact with each other? And one has to look at, right, you know, an impossible set of questions. I don't know. I don't want to talk about it right now. I'm not a military commander. I don't know if Israel has another option, right? There have been a couple of attempts to put one on the table. Not at all clear that they're possible, right? But we are in an enormously painful situation. There have been hundreds of thousands, right, of people killed in the Arab world in the last, you know, several years, right, in an internal Arab oppression. Right. There have been, we don't know how many people killed in the last 6 weeks. We don't know simply because our information is coming from Hamas. The numbers that come out of Gaza are Hamas. But this is not a numbers game. It's not a numbers game. And this is really, really important. Let's just kind of feel this deeply. It's not a numbers game. It's not a numbers count. This is, what do we do when literally the future of the world is held hostage? It's not only about 250 hostages in Gaza, but it's not only about the innocents being killed. It's not only about the level of human vicious sadism, intentional sadism directed intentionally against, you know, babies burnt in ovens, right? Families, legs dismembered, breasts of women cut off in front of their husbands, right? As their phalluses were cut off in front of their children, right? Intentional, horrific sadism as an expression of a jihadi worldview. It's not just that. It's that this worldview is holding the world hostage. There's not a political issue in some region of the world. It's what's our world story, right? And that, in a similar sense, and only in that sense, right, it is comparable appropriately, right, to right the moment in World War II where a nationalist socialist Nazi worldview held the world hostage, right? And the Allies had no choice but to respond, and an enormous amount of innocent lives of Germans, right, who were part of Germany, but held hostage, as it were, by Hitler. There was no place for them to go, as Gazans have been held hostage by Hamas, right, and have no place to go. And Israel has tried with incredible valor to actually create humanitarian corridors, to create pauses in fighting, right, in a set of complete impossibilities, right? I know people on both sides quite well, right? And no one's blood is redder than anyone's blood. Let's understand that quickly. No one's blood is redder than anyone's blood, and it's a tragic situation. And right, there's a set of understandings here that we need to hold in hand. I'm not going into all of that now. That's not our topic today. It's not our topic today, right? In other words, we'll get to that, right, later in a few weeks. Right now, I want to focus on something, deeper. What do I mean by deeper? Meaning, and allow me, if I can, friends, just let's be with our hearts together. I want to go slow with you. This is not a presentation. I want to think with you and feel with you and feel through what needs to be done now. That's ours to do. And I am completely and utterly convinced that actually what's ours to do is easily as important and as central and as vital and as morally urgent as anything that has to be done on the ground in Gaza, whether on the side, right, of Israel or on the side of the heroic doctors, incredible human beings, right? So many of them in Gaza, and on the side of the heroic families in Gaza trying to protect their families as they're held hostage by Hamas, right? It's an unimaginably painful situation. Right? So even as that's all happening, there's something actually that in the long run, and the long run means the next months and years, and literally the future of humanity, right? There's something that needs to be done, which is foundational source code, that doing that will ultimately affect more than anything else. So as the Black Death is raging in Europe, and we need to do what we can to ameliorate the unimaginable suffering, what the Medicis and the Da Vinci's and the Ficinios, right, understood is that actually, in order to create the future, in order to address suffering, we actually need to tell a new story, because we actually create reality out of the story that we live. And the story we live is not just a social construction. It's not just a contrivance. So postmodernity understood that story was central, but it said it's a contrivance. It's just made up, right? The world's really a tale told by an idiot. It's really full of sounds and furies signifying nothing. And we make up stories. That's not what we're saying. Postmodernity got the centrality of story, but as a materialist contrivance. What we're talking about is the ontology of story. The story you live in literally transfigures you, recreates you, which is why we said last week that actually the people who committed the atrocities, most of them, not all of them, but the people that committed the atrocities on October 7th were actually not per se born evil psychopaths. What they were doing was kind of ultimate evil. But actually, they were living in a failed story. So stay close here. Stay very, very close, right? They were living in a failed story, right? And a failed love story. So what I'm going to do is as follows. I'm going to very, very briefly just recapitulate a little bit of what we talked about last week, and then I want to go to the third step. But I want to spend just a very, very little time on kind of so you can get the context, and I want to move forward, okay? Because I want to add like this unimaginably important next step. Okay, so David, we've got this huge week, okay? We've got this huge week, and it's so important. And maybe before David, before you read the code, right? Let's just find each other kind of heart to heart, okay? So I want to just, if I can, maybe we'll just chant for a second, okay? We'll just chant for a second and just kind of find each other, right? You know, on the inside of the inside. Okay? Okay. Hey, 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 ho, ho, ho. And wherever you are, if you're muted, right, just chant with me. Let's chant together around the world. Hey, 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 ho, welcome. Hey, 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 ho, ho, ho. Hey, 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 ho, 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 ho. Hey, 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 ho, ho, ho. Hey, 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 ho, 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 ho. Hey, 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 ho. Hey, 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 ho, ho, ho. Hey, 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 ho, ho, ho. Hey, 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 ho, 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 ho. Hey, 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 ho, ho, ho. Hey, 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 ho, 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 ho. Hey, 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 ho. Hey, 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 ho. Hey, hey, ho. Hey, la, 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 hey, ho. Hey, 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 hey. Hey, la, 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 hey, 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 rinna na rinna hey, hey, rinna hey, hey, rinna hey, hey, rinna hey, hey, rinna na rinna hey, hey, rinna na rinna hey. Hey, rinna na rinna hey, hey, rinna na rinna hey, hey, rinna na rinna hey, hey, rinna na rinna hey. Hey, rinna na rinna hey, hey, rinna na rinna hey, 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 ho, ho. And as I hope I make clear, you don't need a good voice to chant. Look at me. You chant just because when you chant, you access something of the field of Eros, the field of value, which we'll talk about today, which is reality. And you drop into the inside, and as you chant, my mind wanders, and I bring my mind back to center until at some point I become one with the chant and I fall inside, and reality clarifies, and goodness is self-evident. And I realize I'm welcome in the cosmos. And all is ultimately good in some ultimate sense, even in the midst of horror. That the world's filled with good, and it's filled with beauty, and it's filled with truth. And the world is resonant with she and with value. Which is why evil, the opposite of live, it hurts so much. So we're gonna be revolutionaries today. We're gonna participate in the evolution of love. We're gonna try and add a new chapter. And I am friends, Romans and countrymen, beloveds, I am 1,000% sure that this enactment, this engagement that we're doing, this telling of the news story, and this understanding what's happening through the prism that we've been talking about at the last several weeks, and last week and the week before, and which we're going to deepen today, is actually the crucial prism. That without this prism, we can't participate in the evolution of love. Without this prism, we can't heal suffering. Okay, and that's just so important to understand. Maybe I can just say one other thing. Okay, just one other thing, and let's stay kind of super close. Okay, and then David's going to read the code, and then we're gonna go inside. You know, someone, a friend of mine, and we'll get back to it. Send me an incredibly beautiful clip, and maybe Krista, maybe we'll look at it now for a second. It's the clip that I send you of Matisyahu, right? Doing you know what I'm talking about, Krista? Doing the Palestinian and Israelis, you know, coming together to do this kind of, you know, insanely beautiful chant. Okay, right? And so what I want to do is just for a second, just so we kind of find this clearly inside of us, right? Right, exactly. So I want to actually put the words, if you can, put the words inside. Right? Just to kind of want to clarify our context before we go inside. Put the words in the chat box. Okay, see if we can get the words in the chat box. And then we're just gonna spend a minute, right? Really trying to get this. This is more important, my friends, more important than anything else in the world. Okay, right? This is everything, right? This is everything. We're evolving the source code. Let's stay inside deeply. Okay, so can we get those words in the chat box? Could we, for a second? Okay, and we're just gonna play the clip for a couple of minutes. Okay, play the clip for a couple of minutes, and I would just create a context for us. And then we're going to go to the code, and then we're going to go all the way inside. And literally, this is, I don't know how to say this with enough seriousness. This is not a weekly program. It's not even a weekly church or synagogue and mosque, right? We're at the heart of the revolution. We're actually in this time between worlds, and we're actually talking about this in this new way that actually allows us to actually see clearly, which therefore allows us to begin to create a vision of policy and how to heal suffering. Okay? So give us this clip.
התחנה הבאה, חיפה מרכז השמונה.
Gorgeous, right? Is that gorgeous? So stay close, friends. And it's so deep and it's so gorgeous and so beautiful. We have to understand this in context. And if we don't understand it in context, it doesn't take us home. So this song is insanely beautiful. And it's obviously this group of Palestinians, right? Israelis, right? Coming together in this kind of, gorgeous moment, 2018, right? Of course, it's happening in Israel, right? The second this happens in an Arab country, there'll be peace in the Middle East. So just kind of get that clear. That's important. And it's not happening. It's happening in Israel. It's got to happen every place. But it's gorgeous. It's today. It's stunning. It's beautiful, right? It's right. But stay really close and follow. See if we can kind of understand, because otherwise the song ultimately falls flat. So level one, I'm going to kind of look at 3 or 4 levels of consciousness and how the song has to play and what we need to do in order for the song or this energy or this beauty. And what's this beauty, right? The beauty is only real if it's in the context of a news story. That's the big sentence, right? And when we do, Elena, when we do this week's, right, transcript, we'll actually put the words in. So the beauty of these words is only true in the context of a news story of value. Without a news story of value, they don't take us home. So let's see if we can track a couple of levels of consciousness. So level one is you take sides. We're the right ones, you're the wrong ones. That's level one, right? There's this kind of taking sides, and the taking sides are not based on information facts, right? The taking sides are based on, this is my group, this is your group. In Western literature, they call it the Hatfields and the McCoys, right? It's a fight between the two sides. In Shakespeare, the Montagues and the Capulets, right? It's a simple taking sides. So these are the good guys, these are the bad guys. It's a battle between good and evil, and I arbitrarily make the other side evil and make me good, right? That's level one. That's the level of taking sides. Level two is I got to move beyond that. I've got to transcend that. I've got to end the trance of the arbitrary in-group, out-group. Does everyone get that? I've got to actually realize, no, it's one day, and that's the song, and that's the vision. Well, actually, we come together, and actually we can feel each other. And that which unites us is so much greater than that which divides us. And we actually can take each other's perspective when we can feel into each other's story. And you look at the faces in the clip. There's 2 things happening in the clip that we just saw. There's the words, which we put in the chat box, and it's in the text above. And then there's the faces of the Israeli children, the Israeli Jewish children, the Israeli Arab children. What's so beautiful about Israel, right? The Arab children and the Palestinian children, so beautiful, right? The faces, and you get, these are all faces of she. These are all faces of God Goddess. These are all faces, right, of realities, eros, in the personhood of human beings. And the notion that we get lost in this kind of absurd battle between good and evil seems preposterous. Here we are together in this room, and we're holding this together, and we're one love, and we're one heart, and we're one breath, and we're one family. Yes, that's level 2, right? And in that level 2, right, we can hear each other's perspective, we can hear each other's story, and we can honor each other's story, and that's beautiful. But now here we got to get to level 3. And level 3 is, and this is absolutely critical, level 3 is, stay really close, friends. Level 3 is, and not all stories are equal. And this is critical. In other words, the second there's, and let's see if we can get this, okay? Let's see if we can kind of think about this, right? So the second there's value in the cosmos, the second the good is real, and truth is real, okay? And just to stay very, very close. This is so deep. The good is real, and truth is real, and beauty is real. The second that's true, so then it's not arbitrary, right? It's not made up, right? There are some stories, and just stay very, very close, that are more good than other stories. So for example, let's give you a simplest example, the Allied cause and the Nazi cause, right? In World War II, were not simply two stories, right, that couldn't hear each other's perspective, right? Actually, there was an actual battle. And that battle was between two different instantiations of value, and those values were not the same. Now, stay very, very close, okay? This is deep. You got to be willing to go deeper than we've ever gone before, okay? Does that mean there's an actual real battle? And it's a real battle, and it's actually a battle between good and evil in some very, very real way. Does that mean that all the Allied soldiers were good? No, it doesn't. Does that mean there wasn't corruption on the Allied side? Does it mean there wasn't treachery? Does it mean there weren't egoic battles between generals? No, it doesn't mean that. Does it mean there weren't Allied soldiers who didn't commit some war crimes along the way in World War II that they need to be held fully accountable for? No, it doesn't mean that. So good and evil doesn't mean my side's all good. But it means that the core set of values that my side is standing for and the way those are expressed are actually of a deeper, more good, more true, beautiful nature than, for example, right, the values of the SS, right, the German Waffen SS. Now, were there good Germans in World War II? Of course there were. Start with Dietrich Bonhoeffer and his gorgeous work. But of course there were. Were there good men and women in German soldier uniforms? Of course there were. Were there beautiful, innocent Germans all through World War II? Of course there were, right? And there's a beautiful scene, in World War I, which was captured in a movie on when the Germans and the French are firing at each other for 5 years across the Maginot Line, right? And 5 million people are killed. There's this moment on Christmas where they come together and they just start singing together and they just stop firing. And they just say, what are we doing here? Right? And they just have this moment, and it goes on for more than a week, right? And so let's just go deep with me. So we got to move beyond level 1, my side, your side, to level 2. We're all part of a shared story. One day, that beautiful clip, but that's not sufficient, right? You got to get to the next level, right? You got to get to the next level. And the next level is, and now we need to clarify stories, right? You need to clarify stories, right? And the truth is that the people who were in that hall, right, that we just saw singing, I would say virtually all of them had a shared story of democracy of some kind, right? Had a shared story, right, of value of some kind, right? Which was critical. That is not true, right, at the same level. It's not true in the same way when we actually compare, right, the jihadi culture of death, which glorifies torture because that's an expression of a story that it's living in, where the story itself expresses love as, right, in order to love, right, I'm in a narrow, distorted love story. And in my love story, Allah loves only a particular section of Sunnis and Shiites, and anyone else's Dar el-Harb needs to be destroyed by the sword. And, right, that culture of death says there is no field of value in this world, number one. Two is there is no field of desire which is sacred. And there is no sacred body which discloses to me, right, the beauty and dignity of the human being, right, who is in the image, right, of the infinite intimate, the image of the divine. All that is wrong. All that's denied, right, in the Hamas story. So that's a story that's problematic. That's a story that's a problem, right? That doesn't get swept away in the one-day concert. You can't just go to level 2. There's no sides, right? Yeah, we do need to go to level 2. There's no sides. We need to get beneath the sides. We need to get to that place where we're all part of some sort of larger one. That which unites us is far greater than that which divides us. Then we need to go to level 3, and we need to re-engage the battle between good and evil because it's actually real. Actually, Lord of the Rings wasn't completely wrong. Sauron needed to be defeated, right? And Sauron and Gandalf, right, actually weren't in. That's what Tolkien was saying, right, in his trilogy, right? Sauron and Gandalf weren't incarnating the same field of value. So that's a very big deal. So how do I get there? How do I get there, right? Right? And let's go, right? But this is really important. And it's not a waste of time to talk about Hamas, right, my friends, because actually all over the Western world, we have a valorization of Hamas. We have a refusal to actually make moral distinctions, right, between Hamas and a pluralistic democracy. So it's not about Hamas. It's about actually a jihadi culture all over the world. And now we're going to go to the next step, and it gets deeper. Stay close here. Stay close, stay close, stay close, stay close, stay close, friends. And you got to stay close step at a time. And it's it's everything. Everything depends on our capacity to make these discernments in a real way. Okay? Stay close. We'll stay close, gentle. Our hearts wide, ripped open. Our hearts are ripped open, right? We're vulnerable. We're trembling. Okay? Hearts ripped open. Here we go. Let's rip our hearts open. So I'm going to go back to last week, and here I want to kind of like go the next step. So last week, what we said was, and go step at a time, we said that we have 2 failed love stories in the world that are happening at the same time, and both of them are based on failed love stories. Okay? So David, give us the code, and that's going to take us inside. Okay, here we go. David, give us the code. Here we go.
There are 3 universe stories. There is the Barbie universe story. There is the Hamas universe story, or the fundamentalist universe story, and there's different forms of fundamentalism. And then there is the Homo Amor, cosmo-erotic humanism story, the new story of value. Those are the 3 choices that we have today. It's not a binary choice. We need to find the 3rd way. We need to find our way between the binary of Barbie and Hamas, between postmodern, desiccated, empty materialism and the pseudo-erotic fundamentalism, which is wildly destructive. The 3rd way is the new story of value, rooted in evolving first principles and first values, cosmo-erotic humanism. Back to you, Mark.
Thank you so much, David. So let's see if we can let's go deep in. So what did we say last week? So we said last week that we've got these 2 stories that are happening in the world at the same time. You have the jihadi story, and you have the Barbie story. And those are, friends, happening at the exact same time, right? In the theaters, Barbie is playing, and the jihadi massacre is taking place, right? Now, let's understand, there's an intimate universe. Things happen because the universe is speaking. So in both of these stories, we have 2 things. We have failed love stories, and we have failed stories of desire. So in Barbie, as we pointed out last week, the point of Barbie, I'm not going to recapitulate the whole thing. I'm just going to say in a word now, right? The point of Barbie is there's no love story. There's no Barbie and Ken. The only love stories in Barbie are biological, between mother and daughter, between Sasha and Gloria, right? Between Ruth Mattel and her daughter, Barbara, after whom she named the Barbie doll. Biological love stories work, but love stories that emerge from cosmos, right? People coming together as a structure of reality, what we've called the cosmoerotic universe, the intimate universe, is utterly denied by the postmodern dogma, right, articulated in Barbie. There is no love story, there's no Barbie and Ken. 1. 2, desire is not a category of divinity. Desire is not a category of value, right? Desire is a completely random social construction, which is ultimately meaningless. Which is why when Ken leans over to kiss Barbie, Barbie's like, what? And then when Ken says, I'd like to stay over, she's like, why? It's girls' night, every night, forever, right? Meaning desire is not a category. And Barbie is utterly, in her quality, paradoxically non-erotic. The only erotic figure there at all is Weird Barbie, right? She's the only erotic figure, and she stepped out of the story. But all the classical Barbie dolls are fundamentally non-erotic. And the Kens, right, are looking for Eros, but they are patriarchy, and they're looking for Eros is interpreted as a power play. It's a classical Foucault reading of love. Love is a power play used by men to get women, but it's not real at all. And so the only kind of appeal to the dignity of desire and to the reality of the love story is placed in Ken's mouth, right, in Ken's song. And Ken is representative of, right, a patriarchy that is using love for its drive for power. That's the Barbie story. So it's a story which is denies that there's a love story in cosmos and denies that reality is desire and that desire is a category which takes us anywhere, which should be listened to. That's one. The exact same time you have Hamas, which is a failed love story, right? Love is this very limited ethnocentric love between Allah and this extremely small group of people, and anyone outside of that group should be brutalized, tortured, and murdered. That's two. And at the core of that story is a denial of desire. Desire is not neutral, as it might be in Barbie. Desire is demonized. Desire is monstrous. And so therefore, for example, the boys and men of Hamas, when they actually do experience desire in their bodies, as men do, and as women do, right, that desire is demonized. It's held to be evil. You can't hold evil in yourself, so you project it on the other. And that which emerges from a failed story of desire, which demonizes the body and its desires, what emerges from that is torture. Torture is the opposite of lovemaking. Torture is the opposite of eros. Okay, so those are our two stories. Now, in order to get to that clip that we just saw, that gorgeous clip of one day, in order to get to that one day clip, we want to get to that clip. That clip is right, but we've got to get to it by actually articulating a shared story. So I want to try, and this is what I want to explain. This is our 10 minutes. Okay, so here we go. I want to try and really, and we started doing this at the end of last week, like what would the shared story be? So, and let's go just so deep now. Remember what we said in the beginning? Let's see if we can put this together. What did we say in the beginning? We said that only a new story actually changes reality. Only a new story actually evolves reality. We called that superstructure. Now stay close. Only a new story of what? Okay, we're about to go like way, 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 way in, like a whole new, right? That's the only way to articulate a new story of value. Okay? So here we go. So only a new story, because story is the ontology of reality, changes reality. But only a new story of what? Only a new story of desire, right? And it's Barbie is a failed story of desire. Barbie is the postmodern woke culture position, which caricatures the masculine as being this kind of brute, power-driven figure with some, poignant pathos occasionally along the way, right? But it's a postmodern materialism, a brutalized, right, desiccated masculine with no love story. That's actually the core of contemporary woke culture. And I just want you to notice that the Barbie culture doesn't know how to condemn Hamas. And that's why this matters. Right? My friend Angus, this is the beginning, my friend. Right? In other words, the Barbie culture all over campuses, all over the world, right? That postmodern culture, which says there's no field of value, and there's no field of eros, and there's no field of love, because love is a value. And since value is not real, as Ruth Mattel says to Barbie, you die in the end, and meaning value's made up. So value's not real. Love is a value, so love's not real. So then I have no way of doing evaluation. If there's no field of value, I can't do evaluation. I don't have the capacity. There's only hierarchy if there's value. And hierarchy simply means something or someone expresses more value. So an atom has more value than a proton because it has more capacity, right, to manifest life. And a molecule has more value than a proton because it can manifest more life, and then a macromolecule, then a cell, and then a eukaryote, right? A multicellular organism has more value. It's not morally superior, but has more value. It incorporates it. It incarnates more life, right? Then proton and electron, which is why if you rip an organism apart, a dog, you should go to prison. Right? Because you've been brutal to animals. If you break a rock, you don't go to prison because complex multicellular structures have more aliveness, which is more value than rocks do. But they're part of the same continuum, right? So just track this. If I basically say the universe is desiccated, postmodern, no value, no field of value, Ruth Mattel to Barbie, desire's not real, there's no love story, then I don't have the capacity to make an evaluation that allows me to actually respond to jihad and say, jihad, no. Which is why, stay close, in Europe, which is about to disappear. Europe will not exist as we know it in 20 years. Why will Europe disappear? There's a number of reasons, but one of them is, as Europe is accepting immigrants, right, from cultures that are in part jihadi sympathetic, and making those immigrants citizens, it's not actually saying to those new citizens, actually, we need you to study with us. We need you to go deep with us. We need you to actually evolve the way you participate in love. We need to actually, you go through a process in which you actually begin to embrace the intrinsic nature of universal human rights. We need you to move beyond a culture of death, which is Dar el-Harb or Dar el-Islam, either Islam or the sword, right, into a sense of, no, we're all in a field of value together. We're in a field of eros together. It's one day. We can all sing it together. There's a universal sense of human rights. Europe's not doing that. Europe is not making a demand on its new citizens to actually participate in a shared field of value. And the reason Europe's not doing that is because most of liberal democracy Europe is actually in the Barbie camp, meaning Europe is unmoored and disconnected and dissociated from its own ground and value. And therefore, when it confronts a population that's utterly committed, right, to a set of values, even if they're jihadi values, they A, don't take them seriously because they don't take values seriously, and B, they're not willing to make a demand that in order to become a citizen, we have to actually share value because that would be violating the one value left, which is diversity, right? Pluralism. But pluralism has to be a principled pluralism. Pluralism can't become an idolatrous value. Diversity can't become an idolatrous value. Diversity has to be in the context of a shared story of value. And it's a shared story of value, a universal grammar of value is a context for our diversity. And what social democracy in Europe is saying is there's no shared grammar of value. So there's no context for our diversity. So the only value that remains is diversity. So therefore, when huge populations with jihadi sympathies, right, actually become part of Europe, they will actually vote Europe out of existence. That is not fanciful. That is not conspiracy theory, right? That is actually probably the best sociological reading of where Europe is going right now. That's a very, very big deal. Okay, you got kind of gotta get that. Right? In other words, I can only create one love and one day and one song and that stunning scene in Haifa if we're part of a story of value, which is why the Barbie story of value, which is there's no value and love is not a value and there's no love story, that's why that can't evaluate and therefore can't figure out, right, a simple moral equation, which is atrocities are wrong and you have to condemn Hamas. And if you want to take a look at New York Times reporter Bari Weiss and look at her feat called Free Press, as she sends reporters around to rallies all over the Western world, where people will say, no, we won't condemn Hamas. No, we can't do that. Go Hamas. Well, no, that's not a bunch of Angus, or Angus, I apologize if I'm mispronouncing. That's why this matters, right? If we can't, love is not about abandoning discernment. Love is a perception. I cultivate discernment. And I hold everyone accountable, but I cultivate discernment. So what do we need to do? Okay? Right? What do we need to do? Okay? Right? And then let's go really, really deep here. Now, right? And let's go really, really deep here. If someone asks me, and I'm just chatting at the chat box for a second, right? Should Israel bomb Gaza? Right? I would go with my colleague Sam Harris on this. I don't know. Right? It's an impossible question. Right? Should bombings have happened, right, in World War II, right, to take Nazism down? Right? I think yes, in that situation. Does Israel have another option today? Right? In other words, is there an option that allows Israel, right, to actually free the world? The world is now being a hostage of jihad. The world is hostage of jihad now. Is there a way to free the world from being hostage of jihad without bombing Gaza? I don't know the answer to that question. I don't know. I'm not a field commander. I know that Israel desperately doesn't want to go into Gaza. I know that it's a huge tragedy, right? We all know, right, that Hamas is holding Gaza hostage. But should Israel, in any case, not go in anyways and allow Hamas to take the day, right? And taking the day means that Hamas will be aflame all over the world. When I say Hamas, I mean this culture of death. And as Dennis Ross wrote in the New York Times, he said, I've been called by every Arab leader privately saying Israel must take Hamas down in Gaza, right? Or the entire world will be aflame with suffering of unimaginable nature. But I don't know. Right? In other words, right? What clearly is correct is that Israel can't bear this weight alone, right? The world has to kind of come together and create a shared vision. And I said this 4 weeks ago. I said Israel shouldn't be handling this. There should actually be, as I discussed with the Dalai Lama, there should actually be a world peace force that actually counters, right, expressions like Hamas every place in the world, and it should never be one country that has to do it. Okay, but let's hold that for a second. Let's step back. Okay, let's step back. Okay, let's step back. Right? It's an enormously complex issue, right, and enormously painful. So, but I want to go the next step, because the next step is where we have, my friends, enormous influence. The next step is where we have enormous influence. Okay, right? What do we need to do? Okay, how do we get there? The way we get to level 3 is we actually realize first we make discernments at level 3, right? We actually make discernments. And then from our discernments, from our ability to make moral distinctions, we then articulate a new story, right? And the new story is a new shared story. So what's the new shared story? And that's what I really want to talk about. That's the most important thing. Like, what's the new shared story of value, right? Which is not postmodern materialism, and which is not, right, Hamas. So that new story, right, has to be a new story of desire. So I want you to get that sentence. That's the big sentence. I only wanted to come to this last sentence, okay? So you with me, my friends? Right? That new story needs to be a new story of desire. Okay, so let's go slow for a second. Okay, slow. We have to own our ideas and not let ideologies own us. When an ideology owns us, that means that we're trapped in a story, right, from which we generate. If the story is a destructive story, if it's a failed love story, if it's a failed story of desire, we generate horror. To move from horror to hope, we need to actually come alive in a new story. So what is this new story? Let's actually try and articulate this new story. So at the core of the new story is, number one, that reality is eros. So there's a field of value. That's number one. There's a field of value. It's number one. One. Two, eros means something. So eros means, what does eros mean? Eros means that there's a desire in cosmos, a radically alive desire for ever deeper contact and ever larger wholeness. That's what eros means. Eros is the experience of reality, desiring ever deeper contact and ever greater wholeness. That is the eros equation that governs reality. Wow. That's the structure of reality. 3, eros is a value of cosmos. It's not just a jargon description. It's actually the value of cosmos. Cosmos values eros. But it's not just that eros is a value of cosmos, it's that value itself is eros. Does everyone get that? Value itself is eros, right? Value is eros. So value is the movement of reality towards ever more eros. So eros is value and value is eros. Okay, they're the same. Okay, there's no split between them. So there's no such thing as eros and value and eros. It's eros value. Reality is eros value all the way up and all the way down. That's what it is. Reality is eros value all the way up and all the way down. That's exactly what it is. Okay? And reality is the evolution of eros and value. So eros and value keeps evolving, deepening, but that's its core structure. Now, let's go to the next step. So one of the core properties of eros is desire, and particularly desire for intimacy. So desire, eros desires. So we don't just want to be static. I don't want to just be here. I desire more value. I desire more eros. I desire more coherence, right? I desire more intimacy, which is more shared identity, more mutuality of recognition, more mutuality of feeling, more mutuality of value, more mutuality of purpose. So eros is the desire for ever more intimacy. And we have an intimacy equation. Intimacy equals shared identity. In the context of otherness, right? So we don't, not fusion, but this larger intimate communion. So intimacy equals shared identity in the context of relative otherness times mutuality of recognition times mutuality of feeling, times mutuality of value, times mutuality of purpose. So there's these mutualities of recognition, right? Of feeling, of value, right? Of purpose, which demarcate intimacy, and reality, which is eros, desires, right? Reality is quivering with desire, and it desires more and more intimate communion, more and more coherence, right? More and more mutuality of recognition, more and more capacity to feel each other, to know each other, right? That's the structure of reality itself. Now, if I can actually find that and feel that, what I begin to know is that desire discloses value. So this is where it gets like really, really subtle and really deep and really beautiful. And it's the essence of at least this first piece. To desire means I desire something I don't have, which I value, which I'd like to have. I want that. But not want in a just superficial kind of pseudo want. It's not just a pseudo desire. It's a desire of cosmos. Cosmos has a desire for life. Protons, neutrons, and electrons come together because they share value. And what's their value? They value life. And they value increasing intimacy and increasing mutualities of recognition and increasing mutualities of feeling and increasing mutualities of purpose. So protons, neutrons, and electrons have a shared field of value that moves them to come together to create greater life. So the value of reality, eros value of reality, is life. It's the intrinsic dignity of life. And it's the intrinsic experience of being all in for all life. Right? So there's one side, it's the side of life. It's the side of eros, value, life. Desire, when it's clarified, reaches for life. Does everyone get that? Clarified desire reaches for value, and value is eros. Value is life. Value is the experience of ever deeper intimate communions. That's its nature. So another way to say that would be that gnosis, knowledge, knowing, is always erotic. So for example, the word knowing in English, carnal knowledge. To know is to be bound in eros. He knew her. She knew him. To know, biblically, is to be joined in intimate communion. So knowing is an erotic act. To know is to know erotically. It's to feel. Right? It's to participate in this shared field of intimate communion. So yada, the word to know and the word to love is the same, because love discloses gnosis. Now, how do I know what's ethical? How do I know ethos? How do I know a love story that's a story which is filled with ethos? I know because my body keeps score. As my friend Bessel van der Kolk said it, or as the book of Job said it, through my body, I vision God. Do you get that? Through my body, I vision God. And it's my body. Now, what's my body? My body is a field of life. It's a field of desire. I listen to my body. My body desires contact. My body desires to be in devotion to you. When I'm in desire, I'm in devotion to you. My body desires to know you. My body desires, right, to feel the quivering tenderness of your touch, or to feel the fierce penetration of your presence with an open heart. Right? My body desires aliveness. My body desires to move beyond loneliness into a wider field, right, of shared vision and value. My body desires to be creative. Right? My body desires to hold and to be held. Right? My body desires truth. Right? The body of the scientist is passionately alive, right? In the most molecular and cellular way, with this passion for knowing, this passion for truth that drives Steven Weinberg, right, to know everything he possibly can about muons, right? These early particles, right? Weinberg talks about the passionate desire for this value of truth. So we're driven, we're animated, we're urgently aroused, right, in the field of desire, which is the body, right, to incarnate more and more value, which is more and more life, which is more and more holding, which is more and more intimate communion. That's the nature of desire. That's what we mean when we say desire is the name of God, right? It's what the text means when the text says that if all of wisdom would not be given, we could govern all of reality by the Song of Solomon. We can kind of feel this together. If I'm in the Barbie movie and I'm dissociated from the dignity of my desire, then I'm dissociated from the field of value. And then I've got a kind of postmodern emptiness of the kind that B.F. Skinner thought was the nature of reality when he wrote his book Beyond Freedom and Dignity. And he essentially described in 6 decades of work at Harvard University how we needed to turn the world into a version of totalitarian control with no one realizing they're being controlled, because Skinner said love is not real and value is not real, right? And freedom is not real. And Skinner was a good guy. And he said, but we're faced with existential risk. What are we going to do? We're going to control the whole thing and enact an invisible totalitarianism, which will actually produce, will be run by, better said, will be run by upgraded algorithms and will produce radically downgraded human beings. That's what emerges from Barbie. And there's this incapacity to evaluate, right? So, for example, right, is Skinner or the MIT Media Lab that's patterned after Skinner's work? Are we worried about removing free will from people? No, because freedom's not real and free will's not real and freedom's not a value of cosmos. So it doesn't matter. So this is very, very, very important. I can't make an evaluation unless I'm in the field of value. And if I'm in a culture of jihad, which is a death culture, right? So that culture has denied, right, the value of life and the value of desire. Now, here's the thing, okay? And I want you to get this. This is really clear, right? And this is really, really important. This is really, really gorgeously critical, okay? Right? It's so deep. It's not that there's, and this is what's really critical, it's not that there's any racial divide between, for example, right, leaders of Hamas and leaders of Israel. Of course there's not. That's insane. Do you get that? Of course there's not. That's insane. Which is why Hamas, for example, denies many of the atrocities. Because it's not just for propaganda reasons, because that field of life, of course, continues to live in the body of the person inside of Hamas, but actually, but stay close, but actually, that intrinsic relationship to the field of life, that intrinsic relationship, right, to the field of value gets dissociated, right? And a failed love story and a jihadi love story takes over. That's tragic. That's tragic, okay? And I want to get this straight, okay? I want to get this straight. So any member of Hamas, like the son of the founder of Hamas, who's made an incredible amount of courageous videos, right, that have been seen and wrote an incredible book, right, who stepped out of that and actually said, whoa, y'all are unable to make distinctions between, right, the complexities of Israeli Zionism and Hamas, you are lost, says the son of the sheikh, right, who founded Hamas. Of course that's true. Of course that's true. Right? There's the ability, right, to actually access the field of value lives in everyone. And it's not racial, right? It's actually human. There's a universal grammar of value, and there's no one who's excluded from the circle. And anyone who wants to participate in this universal grammar of value and who wants to be in that auditorium in Haifa and say, we are expressions of the universal love story, and we honor the dignity of desire, and we honor the currency of desire that moves through every human being, and we honor all of the diverse expressions of the dignity of desire within a shared grammar of value, within a shared grammar of life, within a shared grammar of universal human rights, within a shared grammar of truth and goodness and beauty. And we don't live in a world, my friends, where we can actually survive without a shared grammar of value. Without a shared grammar of eros, which is value, right, existential risk will rip reality apart. And part of that shared grammar of value is, right, part of that shared grammar of value is, right, is a shared field of eros. Now, is the death cult exclusive to Hamas? Of course it's not. Right? Of course there are other expressions in the world, right, who have deployed death indiscriminately. That's, of course, absolutely true. However, and this is a big however, there's two reasons you can do that. One is you can do that because you believe there's no field of value. So, for example, the Chinese Communist Party believes there's no field of value. No field of value. And therefore, the Cultural Revolution, right, killed indiscriminately and viciously and cruelly because the only thing that exists is the state, and there is no value independently of that state. right? That's absolutely true, right? There's a fundamental disqualification of the field of value that lives deeply in Marxist theory in its desiccated forms and got adopted by communism in a horrific and terrible way. That's for sure true. There's also corrupt expressions of democracy, right? Right? For example, there could be arms merchants, right, trying to push democracies to war for the sake of profit, in which case those arms merchants would be, right, violators of the universal love story and purveyors of death. So they would be at odds. They would be in violation of the norms of the field of value. Of course, that's true. Nonetheless, there's a fundamental distinction that needs to be drawn, which is, right, do I, at the very core of my being, affirm life and the value of life? A. B. Once I affirm life and the value of life, then I'm faced with an impossible question. Okay? Right? Are there situations in which I affirm life and the value of life where I need to go to war? Well, yes, there are, because I need to take responsibility not only for life in this moment, I need to take responsibility for life in future generations, which is why we couldn't be pacifists in World War II, because my commitment to life, right, and to generations of life required me to stand for the field of value and the field of life. These are fundamental discernments. Without these discernments, my friend, literally society crumbles. Society crumbles. And these discernments are no longer self-evident. They need to be made. And so making them, right, is utterly, utterly critical. Okay, that's what we're doing here. Okay, so let's hold for a second. Let's tenderly hold for a second. Let's just breathe. Okay? Let's breathe. Let's just breathe. Okay? Right, right. And it's absolutely true. Right? It's absolutely true that Zion b'mishpat tipadeh. Zion will be liberated through justice. And justice has to mean in this world of holy and broken hallelujahs, justice has to mean my capacity as a leader, because none of us in this chat box are making policy decisions, neither in Gaza, nor in Israel, nor in the United States, nor in Yemen, nor in Iran. Right? Justice has to mean what we can do here is we can actually tell the new story of value. We can write the new story of value. We can do the Da Vinci move and download it into the source code of culture and actually evolve love in some dramatic and beautiful and gorgeous way. And that is what we are 1,000,000,000% committed to do. But justice has to include not just justice for this person in front of me, right? Justice has to include the widest field of justice for the widest possible field of people, right? So for example, and I want to say it one last time, and then I'm gonna close. So when I make a decision, right, to drop a bomb, right, in World War II, in order to take down a particular bastion of Nazism, right? That's a very painful decision to make. And a decision is not obvious, it needs to be taken individual in each case. But it's not a given that you shouldn't drop the bomb because there will be an injustice in the moment because some innocent people will be killed. That is not the decision that can be made. And I sat with the Dalai Lama and we talked about this together in Dharamsala. We both agreed to this wholeheartedly. That's tragically not a possibility, right? Because I actually have to take responsibility for the next 4 generations and the next 5 generations, next 10 generations. And there's a moment in which I say, well, Nazism actually can't triumph. Now, those are unimaginably painful, unimaginably impossible decisions, but they do need to be made. And they need to be made with mad love. Right? Wow. So we want to go back to one day. We want to go back to one love. We want to go back to one heart. And we want the holy and sacred spark of every man, woman, and child in Africa and in Asia and in the Middle East and in Gaza City, right? And in Tel Aviv and in all over reality and all over the world. We want literally, right? Everybody to be in the field, everyone to be in the field. And we want to cultivate our ability to love. And love is not merely an emotion, a feeling, it's a perception. It's our capacity to see. It's our capacity to cultivate discernment. And we need to cultivate a story of desire in which the body keeps score, in which actually I listen to the knowing of my body. I get quiet enough. I meditate. I chant, right? I practice. I listen. I study. I study the sciences. I study the interior sciences. I listen. I hold. I touch. I feel. And I live and I be that love story. And I participate in the evolution of love. That's what we're here to do. That's the new story. That's the universal love story in which the value of cosmos is eros value all the way up and all the way down. So with this we close. 1, value is real. 2, eros is a value. 3, eros is the value of cosmos. 4, value itself is eros. 5, that value lives in us, right? We participate in that field of value. Right? We live in that field of value, and that field of value lives in us. And 6, it lives in our embodiment. And 7, therefore, when we listen to the murmurings of the sacred, we hear them, right, in the polis of the body, and the body politic of me as a human being. We've got to honor that. We've got to respect that. And that immediately tells me there's no place for torture. There's no place for sadism. There's no place for wanton brutality. Right? There's no place. When that's at play, we know we're not in the field of value. We know we're not in the field of eros. One love, right? In one heart.